Single dad CEO's blind date turns shocking falls for a struggling girl at first sight. What? The city buzzed with anticipation as the night fell. A cool breeze swept through the streets, carrying secrets and whispers of destiny. Mark, a successful CEO with a heart still mending from loss, found himself standing outside the posh restaurant, his palms clammy and heart racing. There he was, a single dad, clad in a tailored suit that screamed confidence, yet the butterflies in his stomach were anything but sophisticated. What was he thinking? A blind date. He could almost hear his friends laughing. What could possibly go wrong? But as time ticked away, doubt crept in. Would she be beautiful? Smart? Or worse, boring? And then, like a scene from a film, she walked in. Nina. Her entrance was both chaotic and mesmerizing, with the doors swinging wide, revealing a girl with tangled hair, oversized clothes that hinted at poverty, yet her eyes sparkled with untold stories. He felt a jolt, like a lightning strike in the pit of his stomach. She was the kind of beautiful that turned heads not in the conventional sense, but in an inexplicable way that threw him off balance. A hush fell over the restaurant. People paused mid-conversation. The chatter faded, replaced by an electrifying tension. Everyone sensed it, the magic, the oddly implausible connection. She moved cautiously, glancing around as if she expected the ground to swallow her whole any second. Mark couldn't tear his gaze away, his heart thumping hard against his ribs. Never in his life had he felt such an all-consuming urge to protect someone who was practically a stranger. Was he really falling for her? In a split second, it all became real, dizzying like a roller coaster ride. But just as he stood to greet her, a loud crash broke the moment. A waiter had dropped a tray, dishes smashing to the ground, and in that instant of chaos, Nina jolted, her face a mix of surprise and fear. She glanced back at him, eyes wide, searching for assurance. Mark's instinct kicked in. He grinned, trying to radiate calm in a storm of uncertainty. Yet, a frown creased her brow, revealing more than just anxiety. There was something deeper hidden beneath the surface. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With awkward silence hanging between them, Mark searched for words that wouldn't sound rehearsed. So you're Nina. His voice broke slightly, nerves evident. What do you do? But she hesitated, glancing down, the moment slipping like sand through their fingers. A deep breath escaped her lips, and Mark felt the weight of 1,000 unspoken struggles surrounding her. How could this girl, seemingly so fragile, possess such depth? There was something about her that felt like a mystery begging to be solved. As their eyes locked, a sense of urgency surged within him. Yet before he could dig deeper, a mysterious shadow moved in the corner of his eye. A figure loomed over them, face shrouded in darkness, making his skin crawl. Who were they? And why did it feel like the air thickened, charged with unforeseen danger? Mark's heart raced once more, caught between the thrill of the unknown and the fear of what lurked just beyond their blind date. What was about to unravel? The figure in the shadows shifted, and the hairs on the back of Mark's neck stood up. Instinctively, he leaned closer to Nina, creating a barrier between her and the lurking menace. His mind raced. Who was this person? Why were they staring? Nina glanced at the figure, her eyes widening again. The flutter of her heartbeat was almost audible to him, blending with the low hum of restaurant chatter. Mark, she whispered, her voice barely a tremor. Do you see that man? Yeah, he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. But let us just enjoy our dinner, okay? Yet, his heart was pounding to a different beat. The pulse of danger echoed in his ears. Moments earlier, he was enchanted by her, caught in the glow of potential. Now, a pressing urgency made everything feel more threatening, almost surreal. Just as the dim light in the room flickered, the figure turned. For a split second, Mark caught a glimpse of the man's stern expression and what looked like a glint of silver on his jacket. His stomach twisted. This wasn't just a spontaneous dinner. It felt like a setup. Mark, I have to go. Nina's voice quivered, and she shifted her weight nervously. The raw fear in her eyes tugged at his heart. Wait, not yet. We should, but before he could finish, the shadowy man strode across the room. Each stride reverberated through the space, and conversations fell silent. People turned to witness the unfolding drama, eyes wide with curiosity and apprehension. Is everything all right here? His voice dripped with authority. An unsettling chill laced his words, sending a wave of apprehension through the air. Mark swallowed hard, standing tall. We're fine, just enjoying our date. The man sneered, crossing his arms. Funny you don't look fine. You look anxious. Maybe you should take her home? What did he know? Mark narrowed his eyes. Anger boiling in his veins while protecting Nina became paramount. Who are you? The man's smile faded into a cold stare, icy and calculating. Just someone who knows what's best for her. Nina's breath hitched, and Mark felt her trembling next to him. This wasn't just intimidation. This man intended to control her. Something sinister lurked behind those words, and Mark knew he couldn't let that happen. The glint of silver caught his attention again, and he felt a jolt as he realized it wasn't just a jacket, there was something concealed within it. Mark's protective instincts ignited, and without thinking, he reached for Nina's hand, clasping her fingers tightly. We're leaving. She looked at him, vulnerability and trust shining through those mesmerizing eyes. But no buts, he said, his voice firm, steering her towards the exit. The shadowy figure shifted to block their path. The air grew thick with tension, perceptions shifting as the lurking threat took form, emboldened by their refusal to comply. Stop right there, he commanded, stepping forward. But Mark stood tall, heart racing. He wasn't just a dad or a CEO. He was a man ready to protect who he valued. With one last daring look into the depths of that cold stare, determination flooded Mark's mind. I want to let you take her. And in that moment, the room felt electric. But what would happen if they tried to escape? Would they be able to outrun the impending danger swirling closer? The future seemed filled with uncertainty and fear, yet the spark of hope thrummed within him. As the glass doors swung open, the cool night air rushed in, offering a fleeting sense of freedom. But uncertainty loomed ahead. Would they find safety, or did peril await just outside? Would the shadows follow them into the night, or would the night take them next? The moment they stepped into the night, Mark felt the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. The bracing air hit him like a splash of cold water, but adrenaline coursed through his veins. He could still feel the sinister gaze of the man burning into his back. Mark, what just happened? Nina's voice was a mixture of fear and confusion. She looked around, searching for answers in the shadows that gathered around them. Not here, he said, scanning the street for any threat. Let us get to my car. They hurried along the sidewalk, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the quiet night. Mark's mind raced. Who was that man? Why did he want Nina? The looming vertigo of danger clung to him, heightening every sense that as they approached the parking lot. Mark tightened his grip on Nina's hand. Just stick close, okay? Okay, her breathy response was barely audible, but he could feel her fear draining the confidence from her. It ignited a fire deep within him. He wouldn't let anything happen to her. Suddenly, he heard the scrape of shoes behind them. Mark whipped around, the blood rushing in his ears. His heart sank when he saw a silhouette emerging from the alley. The man from the restaurant stepped out, his figure oozing with menace. Did you really think you could escape me? His voice cut through the air, low and taunting. Mark pushed Nina behind him, every muscle tensing as he confronted the threat. I don't know who you are, but you need to leave us alone. The man chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. Leave? No, I'm just getting started. He gestured toward them, his eyes glinting under the streetlights. You're in way over your head, buddy. Maybe you should try me. Mark's voice was even, brimming with a determination he didn't feel. The man shook his head, a smirk creeping across his face. Not smart. You're protecting something fragile, and I'm the storm that's going to tear it apart. In that instant, Mark felt the ground beneath him shift. The warning bells rang louder. What do you want from her? Let's just say the man stepped closer, and the glint of silver pulled Mark's attention again. She has something that belongs to me. Mark's chest tightened with realization. What could Nina possibly possess that was of interest to this man? The deeper mystery of her past surged forward, tossing around in his mind like a cyclone. Nina gasped, the fear evident on her face. Mark, I don't understand, Shu. He hushed her gently, keeping his gaze locked on the man. We need to get out of here. Leave now? The man tossed his head back and laughed. You think you can just walk away from me? I'll haunt you wherever you go. With Nina trembling behind him, Mark felt the edge of panic encroaching. They were at a dead end, outnumbered and outmatched. He had to act fast. Nina, run. Go around the corner and wait for me. No, I want to leave you, she cried, but the urgency in his voice cut through her hesitation. Please. He felt the weight of her fear colliding with his own, and he couldn't bear the thought of her being in harm's way. Do it for me. With a glance of desperation, she pivoted and dashed around the building's corner, leaving Mark alone with the man who had somehow slipped into their night like a purveyor of nightmares. The man smirked, relishing Mark's newfound vulnerability. Let us see if you can protect her after I'm done with you. Mark's heart raced, and a primal urge surged within him. He couldn't let fear win. But the battle ahead was uncertain. What would this man do? And could he survive it? He squared his shoulders, determination blooming despite the impending dread. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about protecting Nina as the man advanced. Whispers of lost secrets hung in the night, ere what truths lay buried, waiting to resurface? And could the answers save them both? The man lunged forward, filling the space between them in a heartbeat. Mark's instinct kicked in. He sidestepped to the right, narrowly avoiding the fist aimed at his jaw. It grazed his cheek, and the sting shot through him like a warning shot. Not bad, the man taunted, his gaze cold and calculating. But you'll need more than luck to protect her. Mark's heart pounded louder than the street lamps flickering ominously above. He couldn't let this monster get to Nina. He needed a plan, and he needed it fast. Why are you doing this? He barked, buying time, his mind racing. It's simple, the man hissed, his tone venomous. Nina has a key to a past that should have stayed buried. And I'm here to collect what's mine. A key? Mark's chest tightened further, as fragments of conversations, moments from Nina's past danced through his mind, just out of reach. The scattered pieces clicked together in an unsettling way. Enough games. Mark's voice emerged steadier than he felt. You can't scare me. Just tell me what you want. The man smiled wickedly, and for a moment, the world around them dissolved. Mark could only see the shadows swirling. The tension built like a coiled spring ready to snap. I want what's rightfully mine. I want her to suffer a little for taking it. But more than that, I want you to watch. With a swift motion, he lunged again, but this time Mark was ready. He pivoted, aiming a punch towards the man's gut, channeling every ounce of protectiveness he felt for Nina. The punch connected, and the man grunted, stumbling back. Mark seized the moment and sprinted toward the direction Nina had gone, every nerve alive with fear and urgency. Would she be safe around the corner? The man cursed behind him, regaining his footing. You can't run forever. Mark rounded the corner, breath coming in ragged gasps. He spotted Nina crouched against a wall, her eyes wide with terror, yet fierce determination blazing behind them. Mark, come on. He grabbed her wrist, and together they bolted down the alley. The adrenaline was electric, a switch flicked inside, propelling them forward, away from the menace in the shadows. But just as they turned another corner, a loud crack echoed behind them. A shot? Instinctively, Mark pulled Nina closer, his heart racing. Did you hear that? A look of dread crossed her face. We have to keep moving. They hurried down the next street, trying to put as much distance between them and the man as possible. But in the back of Mark's mind, questions churned like a storm. Why did this dangerous man want Nina? And what kind of secrets from her past could threaten their lives? They ducked into a small, dimly lit diner, sweeping through the door. The bell jingled, alerting the few patrons inside. The grease-stained booths and flickering neon lights felt like a flimsy sanctuary. Mark peered through the window, scanning for any sign of the man. Nothing. For now. He turned to Nina, her face pale and strained. We have to figure this out. What does he mean by the key? Nina shuddered, the color draining from her face. I don't know. Mark squeezed her hands, urgency flowing through him. You need to tell me everything. Please. If there's a chance he's going to come after you again, We need to be ready. Nina nodded, tears brimming her eyes. I tried to forget, Mark. But what I hid all those years, it was never buried. A server approached them, worry etched on her features. You two okay? You look like you've just run from the devil himself. Mark forced a smile, but dread coiled tightly in his chest. This was just the beginning of whatever nightmare lay waiting for them. He had to protect Nina, but how could he fight against a past that refused to stay buried? As they sat in fearful silence, the weight of unseen danger thickened in the air. What dark truths could she share that might expose them even more? In the back of Mark's mind, the echoes of that menacing voice lingered. I'll haunt you wherever you go. The truth was just beginning to surface, and time was running out. What would it uncover next? Nina's breath trembled as she stared at Mark, her eyes wide and shimmering with unspilled tears. The weight of her past hovered in the air like a storm cloud, threatening to break. Mark felt that weight, too. It sat heavily on his chest, reminding him that whatever secrets Nina carried, they could very well be the key to their survival. Let us order something quickly, he said, trying to grab hold of a flicker of normalcy. Just then, the diner door swung open again. Mark's heart lurched. A chill ran down his spine. It was him. The man. Mark's muscles tightened, every instinct screaming at him to act. We have to go, he whispered to Nina, but she was frozen, a deer caught in headlights. Mark, I can't, she stammered. Not without the man's sharp voice sliced through the air. You think you can hide forever? He stepped forward, menacing and unwavering, eyes ravenous. Mark grabbed Nina's wrist again. Now. He yanked her toward the back exit. They crashed through the kitchen door, the sounds of sizzling pans and clattering dishes fading into the frenzy of their escape as they hurled themselves into the narrow alley. The distant sound of hurried footsteps chased them. Adrenaline surged through Mark's veins, each heartbeat amplified, fueling their sprint. Behind them, the man's taunts echoed, mocking. You can't escape your fate, Nina. She glanced back, fear twisting her features. What does he mean? What does he want from me? I don't know, but we can't stop, Mark shouted, pulling her along as they darted around the corner. They burst into an empty side street, but their respite was short-lived. Mark, wait, Nina gasped, and he skidded to a halt, the gravel crunching underfoot. She turned, pain etched across her face. You don't understand. He is not just some random guy. He was part of my past, a part one tried to erase. What are you talking about? Panic threaded through his voice. We need clarity, Nina. What key does he want? Tears spilled over, and Nina squeezed her eyes shut. Years ago, I found something I shouldn't have. It wasn't just personal, it was dangerous. What did you find? Mark's voice dropped to a whisper, hanging on every word as if it could change everything. That a shadow flickered at the edge of the alley. The man was coming closer, his silhouette becoming clearer, a predator closing in on its prey. Mark's fingers tightened around Nina's wrist, his heart pounding in sync with the footsteps that grew louder. I found evidence, she finally breathed, her voice trembling slightly. Evidence that could ruin him and many others. The key. She caught her breath. It's an encoded file. If he gets it back, he'll destroy everything. Mark's eyes widened, the realization sinking in like a stone. Then we have to keep it safe. But how? I don't know. I didn't think he'd ever come back, Mark. Desperation laced her voice, pulling at his resolve. They stood there, helpless and cornered, with nowhere to run. A face appeared in the darkness, smirking, confident in the hunt. Enough secrets, the man said, reveling in their fear. You can't hide forever, Nina. You can't escape your past. Nina's expression shifted from fear to something else, defiance. Maybe it's time I face it, she whispered, a flicker of bravery dancing in her eyes. Before Mark could respond, a blinding light illuminated the alley, and a sleek black SUV came roaring around the corner. What the hell is happening? Mark shouted, confused. The vehicle skidded to a halt, and the door swung wide open. Get in. A voice shouted from inside. Urgency etched across its features. Mark hesitated, fear clawing at the back of his mind. But Nina's look was one of determination, her decision made. They had to trust the unexpected. With time slipping through their fingers, they lunged into the vehicle just as the figure stepped forward. Get the file before he does. They sped off, the man shouting, retreating into the night. As they raced away, raw urgency flooded Mark's senses. Where's the file? What do we do now? Nina turned to him, her eyes wide with realization. It's not just about the file, Mark. It's about who has been controlling everything. The web is bigger than we thought. The stakes were higher than they ever imagined, and the chase had only just begun. What new horrors awaited them in the labyrinth of Nina's buried secrets? And who truly had the power to rewrite their fate? The SUV barreled down the street, engines roaring, headlights cutting through the darkness. Mark squeezed Nina's hand tight, his mind racing. What do you mean the web is bigger? Nina shook her head, hair flying wildly as they swerved around a corner. I just didn't know he isn't alone. There are others involved. Powerful people. Mark's stomach turned. What kind of powerful people? The driver shot them a glance through the rearview mirror, eyes narrowed. We don't have much time. The man you saw, he's working with a network. This isn't just personal, it's political. He's hunting your girlfriend because she knows something that could bring them all down. The urgency of that sentence settled heavily in the air, thickening the tension. Tell me what I need to know, Nina. Mark's voice echoed, almost frantic. You have to trust me. The front seat creaked as the driver accelerated, weaving through traffic like a ghost. You'd better decide, Nina. Is that file hidden? Do you have it? I left it at home. She gasped, a flash of horror washing over her face. Home. Mark swallowed hard. We can't go back. It's too risky. We need to. Nina's voice trembled, fear and resolve intermingling. If I don't have that file, we'll never be safe. The black SUV ramped onto the highway, and the driver's focus intensified. We can't go there. We'll be cornered. Then what do we do? Mark yelled, glancing back. The streetlights shimmered as they sped away, but Mark could already see a flash of dark figures trailing, relentless. Toward the old warehouse by the docks, the driver decided, glancing at Nina. Do you remember? What? Mark looked at Nina, confusion gripping him. That's where everything started? Yes, she murmured, narrowing her eyes like she was digging through old memories. That's where I first met him. The others were there too. The thought twisted in Mark's gut. Then it's a trap. We can't go there. But his protests faltered as Nina squeezed his hand with determination. I have to face them. I need answers. Or a fight, the driver added bluntly. Nina nodded, her expression changing. You're right. If they want the file, they'll be at the warehouse. If I'm there, they'll have no choice but to draw you out, Mark finished, apprehension swirling in his chest. You hope to confront them? Find the truth, Nina replied steadily. And take back what's ours. Fingers of doubt coursed through Mark, but he caught the fierce light in her eyes. Maybe this was their only chance, their last shot at reclaiming control. Yet it felt like a gamble that could end in disaster. Mark felt the car slow as they approached the edge of the docks. The whispers of the ocean crashing against the old wooden beams echoed a menacing promise. This is it, the driver said, scanning the surroundings warily. The warehouse loomed before them, dark and uninviting. Get ready, the driver cautioned. Be on alert. There's no telling who else might be here. Mark's breath quickened. Nina, if things go sideways, I'll handle it, she assured him. Though her voice quivered ever so slightly under pressure, they stepped out into the night, each shadow feeling like a sentry watching their every move. The pungent smell of salt and rust filled the air, blending with the rising tension. Look, Mark pointed. There were figures moving in the distance, the flicker of flashlights darting through the darkness. Whatever lay ahead wasn't just a confrontation. It felt like the edge of a bigger storm. That as they stepped forward, the security of the past began to slip away, replaced by the weight of their decisions. Mark thought of running, but the determined look on Nina's face pulled him closer. With you, was all he managed to say, even as every instinct chanted for safety, but nothing could save them from the truth hiding behind those walls. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed loudly from within the warehouse, a heavy thrumming of boots, closing in. Are you ready? Mark whispered, his heart thundering in the silence between them. But before Nina could respond, a familiar mocking voice rang out from the shadows, chilling them, both to the bone. So, you finally come back, Nina. I thought you'd never return. Their world shifted, the weight of her past ready to crush their fragile hope. What lay in those shadows? Would facing the man from her past be the key to what they needed, or would it be the very end? The shadows elongated, stretching menacingly across the warehouse floor as the familiar voice echoed back at them. Mark's throat tightened, and he instinctively moved closer to Nina, a protective instinct surging through him. Who is that? He stammered, adrenaline surging. Nina's eyes gleamed, a mixture of fear and defiance. It's him, she whispered. Daniel. As figures stepped into the faint light, Mark recognized one of them as Daniel, a man cloaked in confidence, flanked by a group of menacing silhouettes. The flickering of flashlights cast an eerie glow on Daniel's face, smoothing over his sharp features, but not masking his sinister smirk. I figured you'd come back, Nina. You always were predictable. He stepped forward, the shadows of his companions looming ominously behind him. You should have stayed hidden. It would have saved you more trouble. Get away from her, Mark said, his voice low but steady, fear twisting in his gut. Daniel turned, inspecting Mark with a curious tilt of his head, as if he were appraising an insect trapped in a jar. Ah, the boyfriend. The brave knight protecting his damsel. Daniel chuckled mockingly, his voice dripping with disdain. How quaint. What do you want, Daniel? Nina stepped forward, confidence sputtering to life in the face of danger. I'm done running. I'm not afraid of you or your little network anymore. You should be, Daniel replied, his smug smile a haunting reminder of the past. You have something I want, something that could ruin everything I've built. You think you can expose me? You've underestimated the reach of my people. Mark could hear the tension crackling in the air, like electricity before a storm. You won't touch her, he vowed, taking a defiant step forward. The chill of the night air settled around them, the salty breeze not enough to ease the impending confrontation. Touch her? Daniel laughed, a deep, unsettling sound that made Mark's skin crawl. I don't need to lay a finger on her. All it takes is one last mistake from her, and everything will end just like it began, a flash in the night. As those words lingered in the dark, Mark felt the ground shift beneath him. He looked back at Nina, whose face was alight with resolve, but Mark could see the flicker of fear behind her eyes. What mistake? He asked, desperate, his voice rising in urgency. Nina drew in a shaky breath. The file, Mark. It's not just any document. It contains vital information that could expose Daniel's entire operation. I thought I was safe. Then it's true. You really did have it. Daniel's smile widened, but it was devoid of warmth. And now, we're going to have some fun. In that moment, the air thickened with tension, a pulse of danger radiating from Daniel and his men. Mark felt his resolve wavering, but Nina grasped his hand tightly, grounding him like an anchor in a tumultuous sea. Mark, we can't let them intimidate us. We have to stand our ground, she urged, her voice unwavering. This is our chance to take back control. A sudden loud bang echoed off the warehouse walls, and Mark spun around. One of Daniel's goons had slammed a steel door shut behind them, sealing their escape. Panic rose, but amidst the chaos, he could hear the quiet reassurance in Nina's voice. Focus, Mark. We can't give up, she declared, face steely. But even as she spoke, he could sense the shift in the atmosphere, the encroaching dread of what was to come. Daniel clapped his hands, relishing the apprehension he saw etched on their faces. Let us see if you're really ready to confront the truth, Nina, or if you'll finally understand just how little control you have. And as the echoes of Daniel's laughter faded into the dark corners of the warehouse, Mark felt a chilling realization settle over him. The truth could shatter not just Daniel, but everything they believed. With Daniel stepping closer, the shadows around them felt alive, twisting and spiraling into an inevitable confrontation. Whatever they faced next would force them to confront not just the past, but the very essence of their identities. As the air crackled, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Nina, whatever happens, we stay together. You promised. Always, she replied, a fire ignited in her eyes. But as they prepared to face their foes, uncertainty lingered. What would the price of truth be? Would they emerge victorious, or would past sins bury them once and for all? The thrill of danger hung heavy in the air, but the next moment could change everything. Would they brave the depths together, or would the shadows claim one of them for good? The atmosphere thickened with tension as Daniel continued to approach, a predatory gleam in his eye. It was like being hunted, Mark thought, and he hated the feeling that came swelling in his chest. It was primal, undeniable fear mixed with anger. Truth? Daniel scoffed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh, you'll know the truth soon enough. It's your little game that's going to end tonight. Nina shifted, her grip tightening on Mark's hand. The familiarity of her warmth gave him a flicker of hope. We're not afraid of you, Daniel, she declared fiercely, but there was a tremor in her voice that betrayed her bravado. Daniel chuckled softly. Brave words. This isn't just a game for me, sweetheart. This is survival. And in this world, the winner takes all. The men behind him stepped closer, shadows shifting menacingly. Mark's heart raced as he scanned their faces. They were ready to act, and the adrenaline surged through him as he realized time was running out. Do you have any idea what you're up against? Daniel taunted, glancing at their surroundings, the graying walls of the warehouse. This place has seen the ugly truth. It's filled with secrets much like you, Nina. You think running away will cut the ties? You're wrong. I can't run from the truth, Daniel, she shot back. It's time you face it. Both of us. Sensing an opportunity, Mark stepped forward, planting himself firmly between Nina and Daniel. You're going to have to go through me first, he growled. The threat was unmistakable, his body taut with resolve despite the tremors in his hands. Daniel raised an eyebrow, feigning a light-hearted demeanor. Oh, how sweet. The hero with the soft heart. He took another step forward, his face now only a few feet away from Mark S. But you have no idea what you're stepping into. You're in too deep. You suddenly, before Daniel could finish his taunt, a loud crash echoed from the rear of the warehouse. The steel door shook violently, rattling on its hinges. Mark's heart jumped, eyes darting towards the source of the noise. Something or someone was breaking through. Daniel turned sharply, and as he did, a figure burst into the warehouse, body silhouetted against the dim light. It was a stranger, dressed in black, and even from a distance, there was something menacing about the way they moved. What now, Daniel? The stranger barked, eyes scanning the scene, settling on the tension-filled standoff with a glimmer of recognition. You've stirred up quite the crowd here. Mark's stomach twisted. Who was this new player? And what did they want? Just some unfinished business, Daniel replied, irritation slicing through his smooth tone. Take care of them. They're more of a nuisance than expected. Nina's eyes widened in alarm, realization dawning too late. We need to go, Mark. We can't hold them off. But before he could respond, the stranger lunged into the fray, fists flying like pistons. Mark barely managed to react, grappling with the chaos unfolding. Nina's voice rose in desperation. Mark, we need to panic surged through him as he fought off the stranger, exchanging blows under the flickering lights. Adrenaline coursed, but there was also the weight of their world crashing down. Each punch landed like thunder, the truth of their situation becoming painfully clear. They were outnumbered. In a frantic moment, Mark glanced at Nina, catching a glimpse of fear in her eyes. He knew he couldn't let her down, not after all they had fought for. We have to find a way out, he shouted, striving to keep the panic at bay. Then, Daniel's gleeful laughter echoed through the chaos. Run. Try to escape. You'll only find the truth waiting for you at every turn. The irony dripped from his voice, and a wave of dread washed over Mark as realization struck. Daniel wasn't just a foe. He was a puppet master, and they were merely pieces in his grand game. With the tide of battle swelling against them, Mark felt desperation seep in. Time slipped away like sand through fingers, and he feared it might be too late. Mark, Nina cried out, urgency lacing her tone, but the shadows seemed to reach for him, growing darker by the second. Would they find the truth waiting? Or would it swallow them whole? As they made a break for it, the looming shadows of Daniel's South Empire pressed in close, a reminder that the game was far from over. Would they ever find their way back to safety? Or was the truth a trap they could never escape? Mark's heart raced as he and Nina dashed for the nearest opening, but the punch from the stranger landed hard in his gut, stunning him momentarily. He staggered back, gasping for breath, desperation coursing through his veins. Nina, he shouted, barely managing to regain his footing. She was a few steps ahead, her eyes darting around for an escape route. The warehouse was a maze of shadows, debris, and looming crates. Every piece of trash on the floor felt like a landmine. He pushed through the chaotic noise, half focused on the battle raging behind him. Nina surged forward, her golden hair gleaming under the harsh light. But Daniel's men were closing in fast. The stranger moved with a savage grace, fists flying, a blur of black aimed at Mark. Mark ducked just in time, feeling the whoosh of air as the stranger's punch barely missed. The metallic clank of fists connecting reverberated through the air. "Stay together," Mark managed to shout, backed against a rusted shipping container. Nina did her best to follow, but Daniel's men swarmed in like wolves, and chaos erupted around them. The fight was fracturing into uneven bursts of violence. Two of Daniel's men charged at Mark, while others tackled Nina. Adrenaline surged through him again, this time sharper, more urgent. With a primal roar, Mark tackled one thug to the ground, feeling the smack of fists against his cheekbone as he fought to keep on top. He felt every punch like a warning that echoed in the back of his mind. This was more than just a physical fight. It was a race against time. "Get off him!" Nina screamed, her voice sharper than a knife. She lunged, pushing a man away from Mark with surprising strength. The sight stirred something deep within him. "Nina, no!" Mark called, panic igniting as she faced a thug nearly her height, fists raised. But she stood her ground, determined as ever. Daniel laughed from the sidelines, relishing the chaos. "Keep playing hero, Mark. You'll lose her just like you lost everything else." "Shut up," Mark shot back, eyes focused on Nina as she ducked and weaved. They needed a distraction. In an unexpected moment, Mark saw a fire extinguisher hanging from the wall. Hope flickered in his mind. "Nina, cover me." He darted toward the extinguisher while dodging punches, adrenaline pushing him forward with every ounce of strength he had left. He reached it, feeling the cool metal under his fingers, and yanked it free. "Stand back," he yelled, spraying the foam across the room. The chaos shifted in a flash. Fog engulfed the fighters, and the scattered light from above flickered against the white mist. Seizing the moment, Mark caught Nina's eye, then gestured toward the far corner of the warehouse where a narrow door lay ajar. They could make it. "Come on," Mark urged, pushing through the thick cloud for her, half-blinded, heart pounding with renewed hope. They moved like shadows through the chaos, balancing on the threshold of danger and escape. But just as they were about to reach the exit, a familiar face appeared through the haze. It was one of Daniel's men, now frantically trying to shake off the foam. "You're not going anywhere." He charged at them, eyes wild with fury. Mark's breath caught in his throat. The man lunged, fists swinging, but just as they collided, the sound of sirens blared outside, growing louder by the second. Relief mixed with horror as they realized time was not on their side. "Everything's falling apart," Nina yelled, panic creeping back into her voice. They had to move quickly. Would help arrive in time? Would they be caught in the lines of fire? Mark grabbed Nina's wrist, pulling her towards the last hope of escape. "We need to push through now." The sirens grew ominous, and in that split second, Mark wondered, would salvation be their ally, or the final unraveling of their fate? As they raced towards the door, the shadows loomed large behind them, a reminder of the dark game they had only begun to understand. Would the truth finally catch up to them, or was it already too late? As they barreled toward the exit, Mark's breath fogged in panic, each footfall echoing like thunder. The blaring sirens spiraled into a cacophony of uncertainty. Could they outrun the shadows pursuing them? Just as they reached the door, Mark's heart dropped. The door swung shut with a resounding crash, and from behind, the hulking figure of Daniel's man loomed, angry and relentless. "You think you can escape?" "No. Mark, we need to go." Nina's voice was tinged with urgency. Mark darted a glance back, determination igniting. Eyes on the exit. "We do this together." He shoved against the door, adrenaline surging as Nina tugged him toward the narrow sliver of hope. The moment felt electric. The weight of their troubles hung heavy in the air. With one final push, they burst free, tumbling into the night. Light from flashing police cars sliced through the darkness. But danger still lurked. "Stop right there," a voice commanded from behind them, and Mark's instincts roared to life. He spun on his heels just in time, eyes wide with dread. 3 police officers approached, hands on their holsters. Tension crackled between them like static electricity. "We're not criminals," Mark shouted, desperation spilling over. "Step back, both of you," the officer demanded, voice firm but not unkind. "What is happening here?" We're just trying to get away from him, Nina shouted, pointing back toward the warehouse, her eyes wild with fear. He's after us. Calm down. The officer's voice was authoritative, yet his gaze softened slightly as he assessed their frantic expressions. What do you mean? Daniel, Mark gasped, still trembling with the remnants of adrenaline. He's dangerous, we have to stop him. At that moment, the warehouse doors crashed open. The shadowy figures of Daniel and his men spilled out into the night, faces twisted with fury. Mark braced for an explosion of violence, heart in his throat. Officers, let me explain. Daniel's voice rang out, dripping with insincerity, but the coldness in his stance betrayed him. This is a misunderstanding. Get down. The officer shouted, and instinct took over as Mark yanked Nina behind him, adrenaline shifting gears once more. Stay with me, he growled, eyes locked on Danielle. He could see the twisted smile forming. He reveled in chaos. Yet now was not the time for anger. They needed a plan. Mark, trust the police, Nina whispered, her eyes darting between the flashing lights and their pursuers. They'll help us. The officers formed a protective barrier, voices raised, demanding answers. Mark felt Nina's grip tighten around his arm, a lifeline in the storm. Telling them isn't enough. Mark spit out, determination flaring. We have the evidence he wants. We can expose him. Daniel laughed, an infuriating sound. Evidence? You really think they'd care? You think I don't have people watching? But then, a powerful voice cut through. Shut up. It was an officer, stepping forward with authority that sent chills down Mark's spine. We'll handle this. You'll be escorted by us. The shadowy forms began to shift, and suddenly, the chaos erupted. Get in the car. Move. The officer urged Mark and Nina as the situation escalated. Without hesitation, Mark grabbed Nina's arm, and they rushed to the police vehicle. The doors slammed shut as the officers positioned themselves to confront Daniel and his men head-on. Mark's heart raced as they pulled away from the chaos, but he couldn't shake the feeling of finality coursing through his veins. The battle wasn't over. There were still secrets to unveil, battles to win, and lives to put back together. With the distance growing, the darkness receded behind them, yet the shadows of Daniel's threats loomed large in Mark's mind. Mark, we're safe now, right? Nina's voice was soft, but uncertainty wove its way through her words. For now, he said, glancing out the window. But deep inside, he felt weariness creep in. They'd faced the monstrous fears of her past, but what lay ahead? Could truth be their savior? When the sirens faded a little, relief flooded Mark. The closest specter of danger ebbed at last. But then, the deeper realization settled like heavy fog. It wasn't just Daniel's threats that haunted them. It was every secret and shadow that needed addressing. We'll get through this, Mark promised, squeezing Nina's hand tightly. I know, she replied, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. With you, it feels possible. As dawn broke on the horizon, shedding light on their tangled journey, hope ignited deeply in his chest. Together, they could navigate the shadows. Together, they could find the key to their future. The past would not win. It would not claim another victim. They were alive, and that was enough to begin rewriting their story. But before the warmth of sunlight could wash over them completely, Mark whispered, let us face it all. Together. And together, they would reclaim their truth. Now, here's the moment we all need to consider. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that take us on incredible journeys. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow this amazing community. And I want you to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Your thoughts are what keep us connected. Finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the excitement. Your support makes everything possible.